forget to go to the webcam, 971talk.com. When you go there, you can watch the show live on the Granite Transformation studio camera. And if you're watching right now, you probably see that we have a guest in the studio, and he is Brian Westbrook, who's the executive director of the Coalition for Life. Brian, welcome back to the show.
Hey, it's a pleasure.
Good to see you. Strikes me we were talking about something like this the last time you were here.
Yeah, about a year ago, the Board of Aldermen were trying to pass what they call a buffer zone in public right-of-way, right on the streets of St. Louis, and they want to push us back. We're trying to talk to women, help them out with their pregnancies, and they just want to push us back. They don't like us helping people out.
You say that what this bill does, it goes far enough to be a violation of First Amendment rights. What is and what wouldn't be a violation in your opinion?
So what we're trying to do, and we are talking about Planned Parenthood, and they want to push us back away from the driveway. It's an 8-foot buffer zone, as they call it, but really we're 20 feet away from the people because it's a 24-foot driveway. Right. And so I'm 20 foot away from someone, and I'm trying to hand them a piece of information, talk to them, just have a pleasant conversation about their free resources here in the St. Louis area.
On a public sidewalk.
A public sidewalk, right?
Right.
And they want to create this zone that only Planned Parenthood employees can walk through, and only people who are going to that facility can drive through. And so this is an abomination to free speech and our ability to actually speak in the public right-of-way.
If I remember, we're talking about the facility in the city, right?
Yeah, so it's on in the Central West End on Forest Park Avenue in Boyle, and they do 5,000 abortions there every single year. And so our organization, the Coalition for Life, just hands out free information, and we also support them after the fact. So if they decide to leave that abortion facility and choose life for their child, we have an entire safety net program ready and waiting for them. We go all the way and through, even beyond when the child has been born. We help them even further beyond that as well.
So I'm trying to remember the setup of that facility just to make sure I understand how this works. And because I know I've driven by there a few times over the years, but the entrance to the facility is in the back of the parking lot, correct?
It's actually in the front of the parking lot. So I'm on Forest Park.
But can somebody get into the building from the sidewalk, or do they have to go through the parking lot to get into the building?
They have to go through the parking lot.
Okay, so they're trying to restrict you from being able to get within 8 feet of anybody who's walking into that entrance or driving into that entrance.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Yeah.
And in reality, it's 20 feet. Because it's the edge of the driveway. So it's funny hearing them argue about this because they call us, protesters, and we yell and scream. And then when we say, well, we can't talk to someone from that distance, their advice for us is, well, you should probably just yell and scream. You can yell and scream, can't you? And I'm like, well, you can't have it both ways here. So this is, down at the city aldermen. They've already passed it out of committee. And it might become law by March 2nd here. And so, I look at this and from just a free speech element, forget about the whole abortion issue. From a very simple free speech issue, this violates our First Amendment rights, and it should be a wake-up call for our entire nation.
I talked about this some last week with the special election they had in Ward 8, where they elected another very progressive, pro-illegal immigrant, sanctuary status type alderman.
Yeah, I think that was Andy Rice.
Yeah, as an example. But if you add it up cumulatively, you're getting more and more pretty radical left-wing progressives on that Board of Aldermen. You're going to see more and more challenges like this.
Absolutely.
To your First Amendment rights. They've already tried to wrap their non-discrimination policy around Planned Parenthood or abortion providers, correct?
Right. So they had a non-discrimination.
failed.
And it failed. Well, actually, no.
Well,
it passed through the Board of Aldermen. And then Jefferson City passed a law making sure that was not going to become, not going to be enforced. Plus, there's a pending lawsuit. So I was down at the Board of Aldermen. They always complain about not having enough money. And so then they pass laws like these, and then they have to litigate them. It's going to cost the city thousands, if not millions of dollars to litigate these things.
So you fully expect if this gets to a vote, would it come up next week?
It'll be voting on this Friday.
Okay,
plus
this
then
Friday.
Again on March 2nd.
Right, to perfect it. And you expect it'll pretty much immediately. Will you go to court to try to stop it from taking effect?
I pretty much, I can't, I'm not an attorney, but most likely this is going to be litigated in court for years.
Wow.
After the fact.
Are there other cities around the country doing? I mean, I'm sure there are. There have to be other cities around the country trying to do the exact same thing. They're following a pattern here, aren't they?
There is actually a Supreme Court decision that came down. And this Supreme Court decision from Massachusetts struck down a buffer zone that was in Boston. And they keep debating. They said, well, no, we're going to be a little less restrictive on your free speech. And I'm thinking, there's no less or more restrictive. There's just restrictive. Yeah. I mean, and so the Supreme Court has already spoken on this and said buffer zones, when it comes to free speech, you can't create these buffer zones around the country. Yet a lot of other cities are trying to do this. They're trying to do it up in Chicago and a lot of these other more liberal and progressive cities.
Yeah. I noticed after the Stockley verdict, and I know there's not a direct comparison here, but after the Stockley verdict, I went downtown, and across from the courthouse in the green area they have there, the open space, they put up barriers. And they tried to call it a free speech zone, and they wanted all the protesters to stay in that free speech zone.
Yeah, stand over there.
And it was the oddest thing is that nobody agreed to do that. Right. And they all came out into the street, and then the city opted not to arrest most of them, even though they were blocking traffic.
Right.
And in this case, you're going to be on a public sidewalk and risk getting arrested because of the silliness of this law.
Absolutely. And in fact, Megan Green's down there, and she supports the Black Lives Matter and all these other groups. And so she's proposing a bill called 134, Board Bill 134, which protects your ability to stand in the street, and the police can do nothing.
Right.
They can absolutely do nothing at all. And yet then she also proposes, she's a co-sponsor on this bill, which restricts our First Amendment free speech. It's so upside down and backwards.
I've said it very often. Liberals are very tolerant unless they disagree with you.
Absolutely.
That's pretty much what it comes down to.
So they want to be tolerant of all of these other groups, which is okay. But they're putting 5 or 6 pages of restrictions on the police in the city of St. Louis with Board Bill 134. And then with Board Bill 34, they're putting plenty of restrictions on us for just simply handing out information to people who are going into Planned Parenthood.
So people, there's going to be a vote this Friday and then a follow-up the week after. I wanted to make people aware of it. They can either show up down there and into the gallery at City Hall if they want to and make their voices known.
Yeah, and also I would just recommend you call each one of the aldermen separately. The number down there is 314-622-3286 or 87. I'm sorry. 314-622-3287. And you just call down to the Board of Aldermen, ask for your alderman. If you're in the county, just call anyways and ask for anyone randomly, and or just go down the list and just talk to these aldermen specifically and ask for a no vote on it.
Find out what's going on. Again, Brian Westbrook is my guest with the Coalition for Life here in St. Louis. Nationwide, we've seen efforts to. I mean, Roe versus Wade is the law of the land. Unless we get a Supreme Court decision challenging that, that's the law of the land. But when it comes to abortion specifically, recently Congress tried to pass that pain-free act, 20 weeks, right? And they couldn't even get the votes in the Senate to do that.
It's disappointing.
It really is, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, it is incredibly disappointing that those who run on a pro-life platform and get up to Washington, D.C., and then don't vote the way their constituents voted or asked them to vote is incredibly disappointing that they would go to Washington, D.C. and then not uphold our basic, the basic rights of the unborn. At 20 weeks, you have a fully formed human child with fingers and toes and eyes and everything you need. And just a few weeks later, they could survive outside the womb. Sure.
And many have from 20 weeks. It's rare, but I mean, it happens.
Correct.
But we've got, late-term abortion is a black mark on this country. I don't know when it gets addressed, but I'm hoping that we get some people elected who have some common sense.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Brian, where can people go to find out more about the coalition?
Sure. You could just Google Coalition for Life St. Louis or go to our website, coalitionforlifestl.com. Or you can give us a call if you want more information about the bill or anything else, 314-827-4039.
Brian Westbrook, thanks so much.
It's a pleasure.
Keep up the good work. We appreciate it. 314-969-9797. I'm going to get to your phone calls right after this, I promise. And then we're going to give away those Monster Jam tickets as well. We'll get to Tony Colombo with the results of our Twitter poll before the end of the show. We'll be right back.
Mark Cox Show on FM News Talk 97.1, 98.7.